Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Shantir, Arjavam, Acharyopasanam, Saucham, Stairyam, Atmavinigraha, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa Kshantirarjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha, Amanitvam Adambitvam, Ahimsa Kshantirarjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha, Amanitvam Adambitvam, Ahimsa Kshantirarjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha,
Amantivam Atmanvitam, Ahimsa Shantir Arjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha, Amadvitam Paratifam, Asinkaza Ajavam, Akyopasanam Saucham, Sadharyam Atamavyam,
Amanitvam Adambitvam, Ahimsa Shantir Arjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha,
Amanitvam Adambitvam, Ahimsa Shantirarjavam, Acharyopasanam Saucham, Stairyam Atmavinigraha.
Word-to-word meanings. Amanitvam, humility. Adambitvam, pridelessness. Ahimsa, non-violence. Shanti, tolerance. Arjavam, simplicity. Acharyopasanam, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Saucham, cleanliness. Stairyam, steadfastness. Atmavinigraha, control. Translation. The translation is for 5 verses. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness and self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, non-attachment to children, wife, home and the rest, and even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, resorting to solitary places, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I thus declare to be knowledge, and what is contrary to these is ignorance.
This is our educational curriculum. This is knowledge. And you can see that aside from the individual points, we'll discuss some of them, but taken as a whole, we see that these are the principles that devotional service or bhakti yoga is based on, exactly these things. Bhakti means devotion, and yoga, Bhakti Vedanta. Vedanta means knowledge. So, knowledge and devotion together are required. Knowledge without devotion or religion becomes mental speculation dry. It's like those in the scientific field or the philosophical field. They purposely keep the possibility of God out of the discussion. So they never come to any conclusions because it's dry and it's just speculation. How does it relate to the world? You say the sun's doing this, and the sun is so hot, and the sun is so many miles away, and the stars are moving, but who's arranging it? That's the big question. How is all this going on so systematically? They leave that aside. That's not an interesting point for them. Because if there were an answer, then their speculation would be curtailed. They wouldn't be able to speculate anymore. And they would be responsible for abiding by the instructions of the Supreme Person. So they have to be together, philosophy and religion or bhakti, devotion. Okay, let's go through some of these points. First one.
Humility.
Yeah, that's a wonderful quality. First one mentioned, Krishna says, this is part of knowledge. Because if someone doesn't have humility, then they don't have knowledge. If they think, because the opposite of humility means to think oneself very insignificant. Isn't it? A person who's humble, he thinks himself insignificant. And a person who's not humble thinks himself very great. He has a very high estimation of himself. So, what's wrong? Someone may say, well, what's wrong with having a high estimation of yourself? If you deserve it. So, someone would like to respond to that question? If you deserve it, why not have a high estimation of yourself? Your answer is?
To love oneself and to respect oneself, to not let the ego come into the self.
Okay, So the question might be then, where do you draw the line? Not to let the ego come in. How do you determine that line?
Awareness of the three passions. Passion, just awareness, I would say.
Okay, anyone else have something?
Because it would keep you from learning from more from other people.
Oh,
Maybe I'm understanding.
if you think you're worthy of high regard.
Yes.
Well, one way to look at it is, what is really my capability? How capable am I? How qualified am I to be giving myself such high regard? On what basis? Is it due to my intelligence? Let's say it's due to my intelligence. Okay, what is intelligence? And where does intelligence come from? Is intelligence just a combination of matter? If it's just a combination of matter, then why are you taking credit for it? If it's just matter. And who are you anyway? Who and what are you that you're feeling proud of? Or that your feeling is worth high regard? What else? Let's say your strength. Let's say you're very strong. So you think, well, I'm strong, and I should admit that I'm very strong. But we know people that are very strong that become paralyzed from the neck down. I've seen it. They were strong, and then they became paralyzed. They couldn't even move their hands. So that means they were not independently strong. They were strong, relative or conditional on somebody or something else giving them strength. But that someone or something else could take away that strength. So they would have to be more accurate, they would have to say, I have strength, but it's conditional. It's like if you're driving a Hertz rent-a-car and you rented the top vehicle, the Mercedes or whatever you're driving, and someone says, it's a nice car, you have to say, yes, it is a nice car. You take all the credit without letting them know that actually it's just a rented car, I don't own it. So that's a mistake, to think that I own it. If I want to get the satisfaction of people praising me for my wonderful car, I want them to be under the illusion that I'm the owner of the car, because I'm in that illusion too. And that's a mistake. I'm fooling myself and I'm fooling others, and everyone gets no benefit from that. But if I understand, yes, it's a nice car, I've rented it from Hertz, and temporarily I'll have it, and I'll use it, and then I'll return it in a week, and I pay for it, and I'm still the same person I was, but I won't have the car. That's more realistic. Maybe we don't like to say it like that. We prefer the fantasy that I'm the owner, that I'm the enjoyer. But we're not the owner, and we're not the enjoyers of anything. Even this body. What happens to the body when the soul leaves the body? It just turns into ashes. If it's burned, nowadays, burning is turning out to be a more economical process. That's the Vedic system also. Vedic system has always had that system of cremating the body, because it has no value. Why keep it around? Why use up, as Prabhupada said, when he saw all these cemeteries, thousands of acres of cemeteries, and he found out they were putting the bodies into there, he said, oh, what a waste. You could be growing so many nice crops, growing grains instead of keeping it just for dead bodies. And what happens to the dead bodies? They decompose. So it's not like the person's there, really. It's kind of a waste. Waste all that good land. So what is the body? What are we? These are things that need to be, the reason these points are so important is because they lead one to the human achievement. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Atato means now. Therefore now that one has received the human form of life, it is time to inquire about the spirit. That means in the former lives before the human, the 8 million species below a human, there's no inquiry about what is the spirit. Do you know any dogs that inquire about the spirit? Some people like to believe that their dogs or their cats are quite spiritual. But if we really consider, if we really look at it and examine it carefully, we'll see that they're quite wrapped up in the bodily conception of life. And that goes for all the lower species. And it goes for most of the human beings also. Most of them are also wrapped up in the bodily conception of life. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So humans do that, and lower species also do that. And when it comes to those four things, the lower species are just as intelligent as the human beings. Does anyone disagree with that? All right, you agree? Because, for example, how long does it take for a human being after birth to be able to look after itself and maintain itself? 18 years, okay? Anyone else? Now, how long does it take a little spider after birth to be able to look after itself?
Few hours.
So, just see the difference in intelligence. When it comes to eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, little spiders are thousands of times ahead of the humans. Comes out, learns the ways of life quite easily, learns how to spin a web, how to be patient, how to encircle the foodstuffs, knows exactly how to do it. So they're just as competent as the humans, in fact, in many cases more competent in those things. So there's no advantage that humans have for that. For eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're better off than we are. And look, King Rishabdev says this, Nayam deo deo bhajam nirloke kastan karman arhate vidujami. He said to his sons, don't waste your time on pursuing things that are available for the dogs and hogs, the lower species. Don't waste your time. Because you're a human now. Act like a human. What are humans supposed to do? Tapodipyam, putakayena satam, shugyet, ramasokyam, tanandam. Humans are meant for a spiritual education. Unfortunately, most of the societies of the world have put it aside as being unimportant, or at least not top priority. It's something you can do on the side if you like, for a hobby. But don't get too serious about it because you gotta make money. That's the real thing, money. Money, they think everything spins around money. My grandfather told me, bless his heart, he was trying to give me his best advice. He said, money is God. He told me that. Of course, he was raised in Russia, so that was maybe what he was taught there. They don't believe At least at that time they didn't have a conception of God as a person or as an entity. So they replaced God with something. They replaced God with a state or with money or with, you fill in the blank, whatever you want is God. Okay, next.
Pridelessness.
They're similar. Pridelessness is similar to humility. Next.
Non-violence.
And non-violence. You can start with the slaughterhouses. That would be a good place to start, non-violence. Because non-violence actually means putting a hindrance in the way of someone's progress. If you put a block them from making progress, then that's violence. So the animals, they're fulfilling their particular terms of life in this species. And they're supposed to be allowed to do that. And by killing them prematurely for our own purpose, we're committing violence on them. We're blocking their progress. Just like, for example, if someone's living in a home, and it's his rightful home, and he's paid for it, and you come as a stronger person and say, get out, I'm taking over the house. You throw him out, and you take over the house. Then you're brought to court, and the court says, why did you do that? You say, he can live somewhere else. You say, yes, he's living somewhere else now, and you threw him out, he's living somewhere else. But you've broken the law, so you're guilty. So even if you use the excuse that, well, the soul doesn't die when I kill the cow, he doesn't die. Just gets a different body. That's okay. That's true. You haven't killed the soul because the soul can't be killed. But you are guilty because you have blocked his progress. It's his place to live. And you've caused a disturbance. So that's violence. In a Krishna conscious person, you'll see that all these qualities of knowledge, they automatically come when one practices devotional service, bhakti yoga. They're intrinsic in the life of a bhakta. He doesn't have to separately try to become non-violent. A Krishna conscious person doesn't have to join a non-violent society or a group that's against harming animals, because he automatically knows that. He automatically practices that. There's the story of Magari, who was a hunter, not just an ordinary hunter, but he was taught by his father to kill the animals in a way that they suffered first, and the hunter enjoyed the last hours or days of the suffering of the animal. So that's how he would not kill them fully. So one day Narad Muni was passing by and he saw the suffering animals, and he saw the hunter and he said, who's doing this? He says, I'm doing it. He said, don't you know there's great suffering in store for you? There's reaction for this. He said, my father taught me. He said, no, you have to pay for this. So anyway, Narad Muni preached to him and explained the laws of karma and how the soul, and so the hunter became convinced, and he gave up that hunting business, and he lived in a simple way, depending upon Krishna. And Narad Muni made arrangements for him to get all of his family needs. Later on, after some time, Narad Muni, this time accompanied by Parvat Muni, his friend, they came to the same forest, and Narad Muni said, I want to check on one of my disciples here, let's go see him. So they went in that direction, and when Magari, the former hunter, saw his spiritual master, he came running, but he wouldn't bow down on the ground because he didn't want to smash the ants. He didn't want to even hurt the ants. He had become so non-violent before he enjoyed violence. So it's a symptom of one who's spiritually advanced to be non-violent. Now, someone may say, well, that's okay, that's nice, but look at the front cover of this book, we see that Krishna is riding the chariot and telling Arjuna to fight and be violent. So it sounds like a contradiction. It's not a contradiction, because violence, when it's in the hands, under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or someone authorized by Him, is not truly violence, it's actually mercy. And the example is given that when a doctor performs a surgical operation, it may appear to be violent, but actually it's mercy. It's an act of kindness. And he doesn't get put in prison for that. It's not that after the surgeon finishes his job and the police can come and say, okay, now we're taking you to prison. No. In fact, he's awarded. He's paid very highly for that and very much appreciated by everyone. So that's the difference in terminology. Violence is causing harm to other living entities. But when Krishna gives an instruction, no one is harmed, everyone is benefited. Even the persons on the other side of the battlefield were benefited by the so-called violence of Arjuna. They all went back to Godhead. That's how the Lord arranges everything auspicious. Any questions so far on any of these points?
Tolerance.
And tolerance, that's a good quality. One should be more tolerant than a tree. A tree is the example of great tolerance. The tree tolerates with winter, it was snowing outside, it was cold. The tree doesn't make any complaints, doesn't form a petition group or any kind of, it just tolerates. Stands out in the cold when it rains and tolerates. Sometimes people come and cut the tree down, the tree doesn't object. So it is said that one should be more tolerant than a tree. That's the epitome of tolerance. Trinadapi sunichena, Turorapi suhishtana, Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in the Shikshashtakam, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So if we're having problems with our chanting, then we can look to these principles of tolerance, humility, pridelessness, and try to cultivate that mood, then we'll be able to chant. And if we're able to chant, then naturally pridelessness, humility, and tolerance will come.
Simplicity.
Simple living, high thinking. One should just take care of the body to keep the body and soul together, not pamper the body and not become carried away with luxurious living. Because that so-called luxurious living, it makes things complicated and it makes self-realization very difficult. It's like if you ask someone, well, why don't you come to this Sunday feast today? Well, I have so many things. I have obligations. I have this, I have that. I have to do this. I have to, their lives have become so complicated. They think they have so many other things, or many other responsibilities to do. I have a golf appointment, or I have to do something for my job, or so many things I have to make money. Why? We have to put the priorities in their proper place. Simple living, high thinking. Where's the high thinking? Where's the simple living? We have just the opposite. High living and simple thinking. In fact, no thinking. We don't think very much. Very high. And the advertisements, they play to our lowest level of thinking. Down to the gross level of the animal urges, the appealing things about the advertising are that they appeal to our lower self. They don't appeal to the higher self. If they use the higher self, it's only just a charade. Because actually, it's like sometimes now they use yogis a lot in advertising. They show somebody meditating and practicing yoga exercise. But it's usually for some food, or some drinks, or some alcohol, or whatever they're trying to sell. So we should become determined that I'm going to simplify my life. I'm going to get down to the real essentials and leave the other things out because I don't have time for them. It's like if the authorities, city authorities come and they say, hurricane's coming in 10 minutes. You have 5 minutes to get out of your house. So suddenly you got to think, well, now what are the top priorities right now? I have to make sure all the people are out of the house and I have a few minutes only to gather up the important things. And if I'm too attached to this wallpaper, I don't know if I can. I was halfway through the wallpaper. I don't know if I can leave it or take it. What do you think? Should I take it or leave it? The intelligent person will say, you fool, stop even thinking about the wallpaper. You have 5 minutes to get out. You have to take only the bare necessities. So what are the real essential things in life? Well, that's an important question. What are we here for? What do they say we're here for? People of this world, what do they say?
Work, get a job. Work, get a job, and have a family, and then die.
That's it.
To enjoy this.
Yeah, to enjoy. Enjoy this. Enjoy, but this, how long can you enjoy it? It's a maximum 100 years. So enjoy for 100 years, then what? And all that time may not be enjoyment also. There may be some other things like disease, old age, and other factors that enter into their other distresses. But anyway, you try to enjoy for 100 years. Let's say that's your theory. What happens after 100 years? You can answer that question? Oh, wait, let's stick on that question first. What happens after the 100 years? Death? Forever? Yeah, death forever, so that's not a very, that would be called a tragedy. If that was the story, a book or a play or a movie, that would be considered a tragedy. He lived 100 years and he tried to make himself happy. But in the end, he died. All his friends died. His children died. His parents died. Everyone in the whole picture died. And then you see at the end of the scene, everyone's lying, dead bodies. And even the animals that ate the bodies of the dead people, they also died. I mean, it's a tragic. So don't you want to solve this? If there were a solution, if there were some way to get out of this situation where you have to live struggling and then die with no idea what happens in the future, wouldn't you at least be willing to spend a few minutes to investigate that? Or are you too busy dying? No, this is the thing. The devotees are so kind because they're going out and they're saying, I know you're very busy. People say, I'm busy, I don't have time. I know you're busy. Maybe just take a quick look at this. Take it with you. And read it a little later. Because then if they get a little taste, if they stop to think and they associate with a self-realized soul like Srila Prabhupada or Lord Krishna or Vyasadeva, if they get a little association, then they can be brought up to that higher level of knowledge to understand who they are and what the real purpose of life is and how to solve all the problems of life. Everybody knows that some people say that you can be saved and you can be liberated from distress and misery and you can go to heaven. So there are many people who believe that, and it's true. If one meets the criteria, if one is genuinely self-realized and enlightened in knowledge, then it will be evident by his activities and by his way of thinking and by the way he speaks. So, if we find such a person that is self-realized and we can get his association, then our problems of life are solved. Because we can follow him. He can lead us back to the spiritual world. And that's why a person like Lord Jesus Christ is still famous. People are still getting so much influence, so much inspiration from his life, because he was living the life of a devotee. Look how simple he lived. He didn't get entangled. He didn't get all caught up in politics and this occupation and that, trying to acquire more and more luxurious living. He lived a very simple life. Just depending on the Lord and teaching others, being kind to others. These are the symptoms of a saintly person. And even though we may not be saintly persons, far from it, but this is the process of saintly life, Bhakti Yoga. And we should all be aspiring to do that. And the government should encourage it. Just like in India now, as our Sridham Prabhu has reminded us a few days ago, or not long ago, the Prime Minister of India inaugurated the largest Bhagavad Gita in the world at our ISKCON center in New Delhi. It weighs, how many? 800 kilos. That's big Bhagavad Gita. But that's symbolic. Yes, that means this is the book of education. And if the Prime Minister of the country is inaugurating it, that means he's endorsing. This is the most important book. And that's what we're reading. So we're on the right track. Any other? Oh, you have a point. Yes.
Well, the question that was raised before about what is the purpose of living, why were we sent to planet Earth? And I believe the correct answer to that simple is to develop loving service to the Lord and to help other people also have loving service to the Lord. That's the main purpose of life.
Yeah, that's correct. That we have to, first of all, become self-realized ourselves and then help others. Just like if someone, his hands are tied up and others' hands are tied up, he can't help them get their hands untied unless his hands are untied. So first of all, we should become good students and then become good teachers. If you're a good student, you can be a good teacher. So become a good student, first of all. Become a good listener. Try to hear from the transcendental authorities. And then, what you speak what you've heard, what you've understood. Then you become a preacher. And if you become a preacher or a teacher, or a guide, or whatever you want to call guru, then Krishna says, no one's more dear to me than he who teaches this message of Bhagavad Gita. When they asked Ambarish Prabhu, who's a devotee of Krishna, why he spent so much money on building the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, he said, why not? Wouldn't it have been better to spend the money on hospitals and things like that to help people? And he said, the best help, those are only temporary, dealing with the body. But if you give people spiritual knowledge, that helps the soul eternally. Perfect answer. Ford has a better idea. Any other question? Yes?
So we heard that we should be humble because we're really renting these bodies and we're not actually the owner of the bodies. So when we're in extreme circumstances, how should we direct that sense of self-preservation related to the body?
When we're in severe tests?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're in an airplane crash and there's some people there, there's no food, and we have to decide what to do, how to preserve our bodies.
One such example, yes.
Well, I would recommend a lot of chanting Hare Krishna. Because by chanting, one gets transcendental knowledge, Vidyabhara Jivanam. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. So by chanting Hare Krishna, one can be inspired by the Lord, by Super Soul within, how to respond to different circumstances. Krishna also is not unmindful. There's no accidents. We may think that things are happening accidentally and by chance, but actually nothing is happening by chance. It's all going on under the auspices of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His assistance. For example, there was a king, Rantidev, I think was his name, and he had some food. He was performing a fast, and he was about ready to break the fast. He had a meal, and some Brahmins came. So he knew the proper behavior was he should share the food with his guests, so he shared it. Then he was about to take the other half, and some other guests came. Man came with some dogs. He shared that, and someone else came and shared the water. Krishna was very pleased with him. He became a great saintly person by making that decision. Because actually the soul doesn't need any food to to exist. The soul is eternally existent without food. So the food that we eat is for the body, not for the soul. But if we're using our body in the service of the Lord, then in some, like Prabhupada gave the example of Jesus, that if he was living in the Middle East, those of you who've been there to that place where he was living, a lot of it's desert. And there's not, it's quite hot and there's quite a lot of desert there. So sometimes perhaps only the food, only fish was available, so if only fish was available and he ate a fish, that's not sinful if that's all there is to eat. But if we have the technology and the ability, facility to grow grains and fruits and vegetables, then why not use that and offer them to Krishna? Did I touch on the point? Okay.
To ask Maharaj about tolerance. You said that we have to be tolerant like a tree. As devotees, we understand that, but we don't deal with devotees all the time in the real world. There are non-devotees who have no tolerance to anything. They are ready to attack verbally or physically, and they are insensitive to people. How do you teach them tolerance? They are not chanting. How do you explain to them that, okay, you need to be tolerant? And they don't understand why do we have to be tolerant and not respond to such and such situation with violence or aggression or anything like that.
Well, first of all, we have to, again, apply it to ourselves so that we're tolerant, so we can be tolerant of them. If we're not tolerant, we won't be tolerant of them either. We won't be tolerant of their intolerance. So we have to be tolerant and well-versed, and as far as we can explain, as far as we can educate them. But a devotee is tolerant because, just like, why does a mother tolerate the baby spitting up on her shoulder? Someone might say, why do you tolerate that? She's spitting up on your nice new outfit, and now you have to clean it, and you have to take it to the cleaners, and you should just whack that kid. No. I love that child. This is my child. I love her. And in due course of time, she'll learn how to do that, and out of love. So the devotee has love for Krishna. And if you have love for Krishna, then you love all of Krishna's parts and parcels. And if you can't love Krishna, you can't love his parts and parcels. Because he's the best person. If you say, I don't love Krishna, but I love this person, I love this person, no, you don't love them. Because they're just parts and parcels of Krishna. If you don't love Krishna, who has all good qualities, how will you love these other people? You're just exploiting them. Your so-called love is exploitation. If you love Krishna, then you can love all living entities. Because they're all part of Krishna. He's lovable, and his parts and parcels are lovable. But you don't love a tiger by embracing it. You don't try to show your love for a tiger by embracing. You show love for different living entities in different ways. So depending on the circumstance, you were saying intolerant people, how do you teach them? Of course, by your own example is nice. And also, do they want to hear from you? If they don't want to hear, then maybe it's not such a good idea to try to instruct them, because they may not want to hear. In fact, they may become angry. Why stick your nose out of this business? Why are you telling me I didn't ask for your advice? Be tolerant, you'll get the right opportunity at the right time. Sometimes they'll say, I just just don't know what to do. What should I do? And then you say, well, would you really like me to tell you something? You were waiting all that time for the opportunity. And say, well, yeah, I'm at the end of my rope, I don't know what to do. This is happening, this is happening. And you tell them, and they're ready. It's like Vidura. Vidura tried many times to speak to his elder brother Dhritarashtra, but Dhritarashtra wouldn't listen. But finally, when after the battle of Kurukshetra was over, after Duryodhana lost 100 sons, he lost the kingdom, everything was lost, then he was ready to hear. And Vidura was patient and tolerant, and he instructed him again. The same thing he'd been telling him before, but this time he was ready to hear it. So that's kindness also. And you can also teach them and train them, not just by words, but maybe by prasadam, or by chanting, or by gifts. You can give them a gift that may link them to Krishna, or just being their friend. If they have a friend who's a devotee of Krishna, it's like one of my friends called me the other day. I hadn't seen him for, 50 years. He called me. And every time he thinks of me, he thinks of what? Hare Krishna. So, there's some benefit just remaining friends with someone for so long. And they think of Krishna so many times. And by thinking of Krishna, Savayamana Krishna Padada Vindaya, they become devotees. It may take a little while because and then if they chant, oh yeah, that such and such person enjoying the Hare Krishna. Now they're chanting also. They're remembering Krishna, chanting his name, just by their friend. So, be their friend. You're actually their only real friend. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. The devotee is actually the friend of all the living entities because he cares about the soul, not the body. He knows who they really are. Their other so-called friends are thinking they're in the body and they treat them like bodies. But the devotee treats them like a soul. No, you're eternal. I'm interested in your eternal benefit, not temporary benefit. Temporarily, you may go out tonight and drink and have a good time, so-called good time. But that's not good for your eternal benefit. So the devotee will always advise, better to do things that are good for your Shreya, not your Preya. Shreya means the ultimate benefit, and Preya means the immediate benefit. The devotee always guides people to do things which are beneficial for their Shreya, ultimate benefit. Go ahead, you can say it and you'll repeat it. Repeat what you said.
We're supposed to have love for all of God's creation.
If we're supposed to have love for all of God's creation,
How can we feel love for Nazis, for members of the mafia, and other criminals like that? If we're supposed to have love for all of God's creatures, every one of His creatures, how can we develop love for the Nazis, for members of the mafia, and other criminals like that? How can we say love with sincerity?
Yeah, well, it's like Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj's father was the greatest tyrant the world has known. He was vicious. He was a horrible person. Very violent, cruel. And Prahlad, tried to give him good instructions. He told him to go to Vrindavan. He told him to worship Vishnu. His father didn't appreciate that very much. But even at the end, after Vishnu came, and Vishnu and his father had their duel, and of course his father was defeated, then Lord Nrsimhadev, who was Vishnu, said to Prahlad, "My dear Prahlad, I'm so pleased with your devotional service that I want to give you a boon. You ask anything you like, I'll give it to you." First Prahlad said, "No, my Lord, I don't want, no, I want you to ask." So, all right. He said, "My father, I want him to be liberated." Still, even though his father tried to kill him in so many ways, he was so compassionate. That's a Vaishnava. So Vaishnava is always trying to make, because actually, the non-devotees are also devotees that just forgot. Somehow or other they become misdirected, but actually they're devotees of Krishna also. So if they chant, they'll become devotees. What about Jagai and Madai? They were non-devotees. They were cracking the heads of the devotees. But Lord Chaitanya said, chant. If you chant, then it's okay. So that's why the Sankirtan movement is so important, because it's encouraging everyone to chant. Whether they're Nazis or capitalists or Democrats or Republicans or whatever they may be, everyone can chant. And everyone can be benefited. And everyone can take prasadam. It's not that it's like the moon. The moon doesn't withhold its rays on the Chandala. Chandala is a dog eater. The moon doesn't say, okay, no rays for the Chandala's house. No, the moon gives its cooling rays to the Chandalas also. The devotees like the moon or the cloud pours water everywhere. In the good person's house and the bad person's house. Okay?
Yes, good.
Okay, what's the next point?
Approaching a bona fide spiritual master.
Yeah, that's... Well, we were fortunate in America because we didn't know where to go to find. Many people in America at that time, in the 60s, were thinking, maybe if I go to India, I'll find a spiritual master. So some of them went to India and they weren't successful. They came back. There was a group in New York, Hayagriva and Kirtananda Mahabali. They had gone to India looking for a spiritual master, but they weren't successful, so they came back. And then they saw Prabhupada walking down the street where they were living. And they met him and they went and heard from him and they said, "We went to India to find a guru, but the guru came here. Krishna sent him to us." Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagavanji Guru Krishna Prasada by Bhakti Lata Pij. One comes in contact with the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. So if you go looking for a spiritual master, that's very good. You need to know what a spiritual master looks like or what he sounds like. Spiritual master is ascertained by his words rather than by what he looks like. So if you know what you're supposed to be hearing, or you have some idea, at least you have to have some idea. Otherwise you'll be cheated. It's like if you say, I want to find out gold, I want gold and I'm willing to spend any amount. You have to have some idea at least what gold is like. Otherwise they may give you anything and say it's gold. So for that purpose we have the Vedic literatures. We have to find out from our authorities what is the bona fide spiritual master, as all described in the Vedas. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gauranga ki jai.
So Maharaj Danavir Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.